What's up, guys? Welcome to another video. Today, we'll be running through how I fly the 737 in PTFS, as I do main the plane, so it's kind of second nature to me at this point to fly this. So, yeah, let's get started here. So we come into the plane, and I do fly an ATC 24. So we come into the plane. First thing, we would request IFR, but I'm not currently in ATC 24. So at this point, we would begin engine start and pushback, which is just simple. You press E and then P for pushback. And I always go in third person for this. It's almost impossible to push back in first person. So we go right up to 32 knots for a taxi speed of 5 knots. And generally, ATC will give you instructions on which way to put your tail end, so that way you're able to properly line yourself up for taxi. Additionally, sometimes wind can push your aircraft while taxiing. It's not bad right now. It's not really pushing me. But in that case, you would want to fix it. Instead of going off of the line, you'd want to adjust yourself to the wind to line yourself up. At this point, you want to get the line pretty much center between the back of the middle of your two wheels. Then make sure your nose is just following that line down so you can get a pretty much perfect pushback. Then you want to slowly ease out on the pushback pressure there until you get to 0. As of here, you would want to request taxi instructions. In this case, we're not in ATC 24, so this is when I would enter into first person. So as we're here, we're gonna make our way to the runway. Make sure you press P to get out of pushback mode, and you can start your taxi. I found the best way to taxi speed 21 when going through curves. It's very efficient. I could just turn my mouse all the way, and it pretty much lined me up perfect every time. Here we would want to hold short, wait for clearance, looks clear visually here, and then we would want to cross. And when you're taxiing normally without doing the turns, you'd want to go 24%. So on screen now, you can see vector charts, or just waypoints in general. These are what you use to schedule your flight plan. They're pretty important, especially if you're doing ATC 24 and you want to do realistic flights, which we'll have in the description, and you can see some of the charts there. For some of the wider turns like this, you don't really need to decrease your speed as well. So we're finishing our taxi up here to the runway, and we'll prepare for takeoff once we hold short. So at this point, we would be holding short of the runway, which is 29er in this case, as you can see by the stand right there. And at this point, which I also would like to drop the flaps down to 1 for takeoff. I found that to be most practical, and also it's kind of just like common use to use 1 flap for takeoff. So here we go. We're gonna line ourselves up with this runway and take off. Generally, it would be an immediate departure following the lineup on the runway. To go for a more elongated takeoff like I like to do, I usually go to about 55% for starting. Once we reach 100 knots, we'll kick it up a notch, maybe to 70. Just generally around that area, and then as you can see here, ready for pull back, and there we go. We rotate, and there we go. In the air, wait a few seconds, drop that gear, or pull that gear up, and watch your speed now, and you're gonna drop the flaps down back to 0 for maximal efficiency while climbing. Today we're going to Tokyo, which is not too far away at all, especially for a 737. Definitely in the 737, watch your fuel. Definitely want to watch the fuel, especially if you're flying a really long flight. So we'll get up to, say, 2,500 feet here. I like to climb at 250 knots. Alright, here, good holding point for altitude. And at this point, we would hold and get our speed there to what we want for cruising. Whatever you'd want for cruising would be acceptable. And right here, you can see the airport start to come in sight. We're going to be landing runway 20 today, which is on the aircraft carrier looking runway. So we're going to drop the hold and begin our initial descent here, as we can see the runways. So we know that the runway is 20, and I believe the runway across from it is 02, which we can do by turning our heading in just general direction. So that'll help us when we're going to turn our heading to set ourselves up for approach. So that would be the downwind. So you have the upwind, crosswind, downwind, base, and then final. And those are your different legs for when you're flying. When you're descending, you would want to drop your speed to 200 knots. If it's taking a while, you can add flaps. Generally, you don't want to overload the flaps until you are ready for landing, though. Alright, we got a decent runway viewing here. So we're not going to land runway 31. We're going to do 20. At this point, we would turn left heading 02. The reason for that is we're going parallel to the runway. So we're entering our downwind now, and that would make it easy for us to just enter our base leg and final when we're ready to land. And when landing in PTFS, your glide slope will most likely be intercepted at 1,000 feet. And glide slope are the lights that you see. They keep you aligned as you're descending down to the airport. So if we look left here, you can see the runway that we're going to land there. And we're going to just keep heading this way. Now we're going to begin to drop our speed. Going to drop it to around 180, 190-ish. Just in the general area of that. And now I think we're ready to make our turn towards final. We're just going to turn heading 020 or 200 to the runway. And drop our altitude a little bit as we're turning to drop to that 1,000 feet as we were expecting for the glide slope intercept. At the so right here you can see that we're a little short. So we're just gonna go parallel to the runway here. Drop our speed again. Drop the altitude. So we're gonna go down almost to land speed here. And then here we go. Continue to drop the altitude. And as we're lining up for final here, we want to drop the landing gear. A little off center here, so we'll just fix ourselves up, center it down. Obviously, no real autopilot in this game. And at this point, we will want to set our flaps to full. And start following the glide slope. I find it generally best to do 3 whites, 1 red. Because I've tried following the actual glide slope before, and it kind of ran me into the lights before the landing. So I haven't had the best of luck with that. And we're coming in for landing now. Watch the speed. We're at 113, and it looks like we're perfectly on target for our touchdown zone here.
40, 30, 20, 10.
And there we go. We have landing. Slow nose roll down to the ground. And at this point, we would begin our initial slowdown here and vacate right when able, which would the ATC would tell you, or should tell you, I should say. And then at this point, you would vacate the runway. When you're vacating the runway, this yellow line here, you want to make sure your back wheels do get over that. And the 737 is very short, so right about there should be good. And once your wheels are over that, that means you have vacated. And this is when you would contact ATC for further taxi instructions to whatever you want to taxi to. So we're going to taxi over, and we can reset our flaps here. We're going to set our taxi knots, or percentage, I should say. And we're going to start our taxi down to the gates here. And now at Tokyo, the first few gates are made for the smaller aircraft like the A320 and 737. The further down ones are more fitted for 787, 777, 747, A380, things like that. So just keep that in mind. Nice to know that information when landing. As you can see, that it's pretty much perfect on the taxi there with 21 knots for the turns. And we'll just make our way over here. We'll just turn into the first open gate we see, which will probably be right here on our left. Gate 1, it looks like. We will actually go over one more. Just because I can see that the first gate there is way high. So it looks like we're going to gate 2. And right here, you can see it doesn't look like I'm lined up, but I am actually lined up with the line. You really want to, this right here, that should be like your center point for where you want to line up. So we're going to decrease our speed here as we come in. So right there, watch the center point. And right about there, should be good. Just overshot it. That's alright. At this point, we would want to turn the engine off. Obviously, reduce engine, but also um, saves you some fuel consumption. And this is when you would schedule your next flight plan, or if it was realistic, you would unload your passengers here. And you could lower the jetway, kind of optional. But generally, I don't worry about that too often. So yeah, that's really it for my 737 flights. Yeah, it's way more intuitive once you're in ATC 24 because they usually vector you, which is giving you headings to places, like taking off and landing. That makes that much easier when you have ATC guiding you. But other than that, it's really up to you, and it's not super difficult, and it's really fun once you get the hang of it. So I hope someone found this entertaining or maybe useful. If so, make sure to like and subscribe. That'd be greatly appreciated. And thanks for watching. See you next time.